Hadīth 1. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whoever frees a Muslim slave, Allah will save all the parts of his body from the hell fire as he has freed the body parts of the slave. Sa'id bin Marjanah said that he narrated that hadith to Ali bin al-Husayn, and he freed his slave for whom Abdullāh bin Ja'far had offered him 10,000 dirhams or 1,000 dinars. Hadith 2. Narrated Abu Dar, I asked the Prophet, what is the best deed? He replied, to believe in Allah and to fight for his cause. I then asked, what is the best kind of manumission of slaves? He replied, the manumission of the most expensive slave and the most beloved by his master. I said, if I cannot afford to do that? He said, help the weak or do good for a person who cannot work for himself. I said, if I cannot do that? He said, refrain from harming others, for this will be regarded as a charitable deed for your own good. Hadith 3. Narrated Ismā bint Abu Bakr, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, ordered us to free slaves at the time of solar eclipses. Hadith 4. Narrated Ismā bint Abu Bakr, we were ordered to free slaves at the time of lunar eclipses. Hadith 5. Narrated Ibn Umar, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whoever manumits a slave owned by two masters, should manumit him completely, not partially, if he is rich, after having its price evaluated. Hadith 6. Narrated Abdullāh bin Umar, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whoever frees his share of a common slave and he has sufficient money to free him completely, should let its price be estimated by a just man and give his partners the price of their shares and manumit the slave, otherwise, that is, if he has not sufficient money, he manumits the slave partially. Hadith 7. Narrated Ibn Umar, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whoever manumits his share of a slave, then it is essential for him to get that slave manumitted completely as long as he has the money to do so. If he has not sufficient money to pay the price of the other shares, after the price of the slave is evaluated justly, the manumitted manumits the slave partially in proportion to his share. Ubaydullah narrated as above in brief. Hadith 8. Narrated Ibn Umar, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, he who manumits his share of a slave and has money sufficient to free the remaining portion of that slave's price, justly estimated, then he should manumit him, by giving the rest of his price to the other co-owners. Nafi added, otherwise the slave is partially free. Ayyub is not sure whether the last statement was said by Nafi or it was a part of the hadith. Hadith 9. Narrated Ibn Umar, that he used to give his verdict regarding the male or female slaves owned by more than one master, one of whom may manumit his share of the slave. Ibn Umar used to say in such a case, the manumitted should manumit the slave completely if he has sufficient money to pay the rest of the price of that slave, which is to be justly estimated, and the other shareholders are to take the price of their shares and the slave is freed, released from slavery. Ibn Umar narrated this verdict from the Prophet. Hadith 10. Narrated Abu Hurairah, that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whoever frees his portion of a common slave. Hadith 11. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, whoever frees his portion of a common slave should free the slave completely by paying the rest of his price from his money if he has enough money, otherwise the price of the slave is to be estimated and the slave is to be helped to work without hardship till he pays the rest of his price. Hadith 12. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Allah has accepted my invocation to forgive what whispers in the hearts of my followers, unless they put it to action or utter it. Hadith 13. Narrated Umar bin al-Khattab, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, the reward of deeds depend on intentions, and every person will get the reward according to what he intends. So, whoever migrated for Allah and his Apostle, then his migration will be for Allah and his Apostle, and whoever migrated for worldly benefits or for marrying a woman, then his migration will be for what he migrated for. Hadith 14. Narrated Qais, when Abu Hurairah, accompanied by his slave, set out intending to embrace Islam, they lost each other on the way. The slave then came while Abu Hurairah was sitting with the Prophet. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "O Abu Hurairah, your slave has come back." Abu Hurairah said, "Indeed, I would like you to witness that I have manumitted him." That happened at the time when Abu Hurairah recited the following poetic verse, "What a long, tedious, tiresome night. Nevertheless, it has delivered us from the land of kufr, disbelief." Hadith 15. Narrated Abu Hurairah, on my way to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, I was reciting, "What a long, tedious, tiresome night. Nevertheless, it has saved us from the land of kufr, disbelief. I had a slave who ran away from me on the way. When I went to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and gave the pledge of allegiance for embracing Islam, the slave showed up while I was still with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, who remarked, 'O Abu Hurairah, here is your slave.' I said, 'I manumit him for Allah's sake,' and so I freed him." Hadith 16. Narrated Qais, when Abu Hurairah accompanied by his slave came intending to embrace Islam, they lost each other on the way. When the slave showed up, Abu Hurairah said to the Prophet, "I make you witness that the slave is free for Allah's cause." Hadith 17. Narrated Aisha, Utbah bin Abi Waqqas authorized his brother Sa'd bin Abi Waqqas to take the son of the slave girl of Zamah into his custody, telling him that the boy was his own, illegal, son. When Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, went to Makkah, at the time of the conquest, Sa'd took the son of the slave girl of Zamah to Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, and also brought Abu bin Zamah with him and said, "O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. This is the son of my brother Utbah who authorized me to take him into my custody." Abu bin Zamah said, "O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. He is my brother, the son of Zamah's slave girl, and he was born on his bed." Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, looked at the son of the slave girl of Zamah and noticed much resemblance to Utbah. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "It is for you, O Abu bin Zamah, as he was born on the bed of your father." Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, then told Saudah bin Zamah to observe veil in the presence of the boy as he noticed the boy's resemblance to Utbah, and Saudah was the wife of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Hadith 18. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullāh, a man amongst us declared that his slave would be freed after his death. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, called for that slave and sold him. The slave died the same year. Hadith 19. Narrated Ibn Umar, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, forbade the selling or donating the wallah of a freed slave. Hadith 20. Narrated Aisha, I bought Barira, but her masters put the condition that her wallah would be for them. I told the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, about it. He said to me, manumit, free her, as her wallah will be for the one who pays the price. So, I manumitted, freed her. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, called Barira and gave her the option of either staying with her husband or leaving him. She said, even if he gave me so much money, I would not stay with him, and so she preferred her freedom to her husband. Hadith 21. Narrated Anas, some men of the Ansar asked for the permission of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, and said, allow us to give up the ransom from our nephew Al-Abbas. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said to them, do not leave, even, a dirham, of his ransom. Hadith 22. Narrated Hisham, my father told me that Hakim bin Hizam manumitted 100 slaves in the pre-Islamic period of ignorance and slaughtered 100 camels, and distributed them in charity. When he embraced Islam, he again slaughtered 100 camels and manumitted 100 slaves. Hakim said, I asked Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. What do you think about some good deeds I used to practice in the pre-Islamic period of ignorance regarding them as deeds of righteousness? Allah's Apostle said, you have embraced Islam along with all those good deeds you did. Hadith 23. Narrated Marwan and Al-Miswar bin Makramah, when the delegates of the tribe of Hawazin came to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and they requested him to return their properties and captives. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, stood up and said to them, I have other people with me in this matter, as you see, and the most beloved statement to me is the true one, you may choose either the properties or the prisoners as I have delayed their distribution. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, had waited for them for more than 10 days since his arrival from Taif. So, when it became evident to them that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was not going to return them except one of the two, they said, we choose our prisoners. The Prophet got up amongst the people and glorified and praised Allah as he deserved and said, then after, these brethren of yours have come to us with repentance, and I see it logical to return them the captives. So, whoever amongst you likes to do that as a favor, then he can do it, and whoever of you likes to stick to his share till we recompense him from the very first war booty which Allah will give us, then he can do so, that is, give up the present captives. The people unanimously said, we do that, return the captives, willingly. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, we do not know which of you has agreed to it and which have not, so go back and let your leaders forward us your decision. So, all the people then went back and discussed the matter with their leaders who returned and informed the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, that all the people had willingly given their consent to return the captives. This is what has reached us about the captives of Hawazin. Narrated on us that Abbas said to the Prophet, I paid for my ransom and Aqil's ransom. Hadith 24. Narrated Ibn Awn, I wrote a letter to Nafi and Nafi wrote in reply to my letter that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, had suddenly attacked Bani Mustalik without warning while they were heedless and their cattle were being watered at the places of water. Their fighting men were killed and their women and children were taken as captives. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, got Juwayriyah on that day. Nafi said that Ibn Umar had told him the above narration and that Ibn Umar was in that army. Hadith 25. Narrated Ibn Muhayriz, I saw Abu Sa'id and asked him about coitus interruptus. Abu Sa'id said, we went with Allah's Apostle, in the Ghazwa of Bani al-Mustalik and we captured some of the Arabs as captives, and the long separation from our wives was pressing us hard and we wanted to practice coitus interruptus. We asked Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, whether it was permissible. He said, it is better for you not to do so. No soul, that which Allah has, destined to exist, up to the day of resurrection, but will definitely come into existence. Hadith 26. Narrated Abu Hurairah, I have loved the people of the tribe of Bani Tamim ever since I heard three things Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said about them. I heard him saying, these people, of the tribe of Bani Tamim, would stand firm against ad-Dajjal. When the sadaqat, gifts of charity, from that tribe came, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, these are the sadaqat, that is, charitable gifts, of our folk. Aisha had a slave girl from that tribe, and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said to Aisha, manumit her as she is a descendant of Ishmael, the Prophet. Hadith 27. Narrated Abu Musa, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, he who has a slave girl and educates and treats her nicely and then manumits and marries her, will get a double reward. Hadith 28. Narrated Al-Ma'rur bin Suwaid, I saw Abu Dar al-Ghifari wearing a cloak, and his slave, too, was wearing a cloak. We asked him about that is, how both were wearing similar cloaks. He replied, once I abused a man and he complained of me to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, asked me, did you abuse him by slighting his mother? He added, your slaves are your brethren upon whom Allah has given you authority. So, if one has one's brethren under one's control, one should feed them with the like of what one eats and clothe them with the like of what one wears. You should not overburden them with what they cannot bear, and if you do so, help them in their hard job. Hadīth 29. Narrated Ibn Umar, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if a slave is honest and faithful to his master and worships his Lord, Allah, in a perfect manner, he will get a double reward. Hadīth 30. Narrated Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, he who has a slave girl and teaches her good manners and improves her education and then manumits and marries her, will get a double reward, and any slave who observes Allah's right and his master's right will get a double reward. Hadīth 31. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, a pious slave gets a double reward. Abu Hurairah added, by him in whose hands my soul is, but for jihad, that is, holy battles, Hajj, and my duty to serve my mother, I would have loved to die as a slave. Hadīth 32. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, goodness and comfort are for him who worships his Lord in a perfect manner and serves his master sincerely. Hadīth 33. Narrated Abdullāh, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if a slave serves his Sayyid, that is, master, sincerely and worships his Lord, Allah, perfectly, he will get a double reward. Hadīth 34. Narrated Abu Musa, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, the Mamluk, slave, who worships his Lord in a perfect manner, and is dutiful, sincere and obedient to his Sayyid, master, will get a double reward. Hadīth 35. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, you should not say, feed your Lord, Rabbaka, help your Lord in performing ablution, or give water to your Lord, but should say, my master, for example, feed your master instead of Lord etc., Sayyidi, or, my guardian, Mawlai, and one should not say, my slave, Abdi, or, my girl slave, Amari, but should say, my lad, Fatai, my lass, Fatati, and, my boy, Gulami. Hadīth 36. Narrated Ibn Umar, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if one manumits his share of a common slave, Abd, and he has money sufficient to free the remaining portion of the price of the slave, justly estimated, then he should free the slave completely by paying the rest of his price, otherwise the slave is freed partly. Hadīth 37. Narrated Abdullāh, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, every one of you is a guardian and is responsible for his charges. The ruler who has authority over people, is a guardian and is responsible for them, a man is a guardian of his family and is responsible for them, a woman is a guardian of her husband's house and children and is responsible for them, a slave, Abd, is a guardian of his master's property and is responsible for it, so all of you are guardians and are responsible for your charges. Hadīth 38. Narrated Abu Hurairah and Zayd bin Khalid, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if a slave girl, Amma, commits illegal sexual intercourse, scourge her, if she does it again, scourge her again, if she repeats it, scourge her again. The narrator added that on the third or the fourth offense, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, sell her even for a hair rope. Hadīth 39. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, when your servant brings your meals to you, then if he does not let him sit and share the meals, then he should at least give him a mouthful or 2 mouthfuls of that meal or a meal or 2 meals, as he has prepared it. Hadīth 40. Narrated Abdullāh bin Umar, that he heard Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, saying, every one of you is a guardian and is responsible for his charge, the ruler is a guardian and is responsible for his subjects, the man is a guardian in his family and responsible for his charges, a woman is a guardian of her husband's house and responsible for her charges, and the servant is a guardian of his master's property and is responsible for his charge. I definitely heard the above from the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and think that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, also said, a man is a guardian of his father's property and responsible for his charges, so every one of you is a guardian and responsible for his charges. Hadīth 41. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if somebody fights, or beats somebody, then he should avoid the face.